Yeah, we don't want to do anything to scare your children. That's the last thing we want to do. We don't want to scare anybody.
Picking up a little bit more once again, and LAPD without any problems keeping up with them, as I mentioned. In fact, doing an excellent job of moderating the traffic through here, creating a traffic break behind them, closing off entrance ramps ahead of him. And even though he's had several opportunities like that one right there to get off the freeway, he's chosen to remain committed to the 110 freeway. And he is now approaching Terminal Island, and that will put him with the possibility of one more exit ramp he might be able to take. He may very well end up on the Vincent Thomas Bridge in the port of Los Angeles, or he may come to a complete stop here again. Anybody's guess at this point. Once again, if you're watching us online, a great opportunity to remind you to download our ABC7 streaming apps. You can download download our ABC7 app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Google TV, and watch the pursuit on the big screen as we continue to track the movements of this armed and dangerous suspect behind the wheel of this silver Chevy Malibu, leading police on a dangerous pursuit, at times high speed, at other times much lower speed, all the more unpredictable, but they are treating this very gingerly, taking their time and being very patient with the suspect, to say the least. He's gotten off the freeway here. We're now at the San Pedro sign along Gaffey, and now getting back onto the 110. So getting back on the 110 freeway, and that will put him on the northbound side. In fact, he's even passing the split there. So we're now going to retrace this pursuit back in the opposite direction, and now on the northbound side of the Harbor Freeway here in San Pedro, also picking up a little bit of speed again, certainly biding his time here as he searches for a spot to either dump or give himself up, but still remaining committed to the freeway where he's got plenty of open. He will now have the task of shutting down the freeway, but this time on the northbound side. So they will create a traffic break behind him. They will close off entrance ramps ahead of him, and the pursuit will continue for as long as this driver continues to keep driving like this and lead police on this pursuit. Or it might be up to the vehicle depending on how much gas is left in the tank. So we will see how this ends. Hopefully it ends safely, but you can see once again slowing down to a crawl here. LAPD's Harbor Division now joining this pursuit. So LAPD's 77th Street assisting LAPD's gang unit in initiating this pursuit and taking it onto the freeway. California Highway Patrol assisting with the traffic, and now LAPD's Harbor Division involved in this pursuit, adding more manpower to the situation, and LAPD's air unit overhead here. Again, there were two airships earlier. At least one of them is pulled off, and we now have one remaining airship with their night sun on him, keeping the pressure on and doing everything they can to hopefully bring this to a safe and peaceful resolution that will ultimately, though, be up to the driver. All right, back up to about 50 or 60 miles per hour now as he starts to apply a little more gas, and you can see LAPD continuing along with him here, and they are handing this off again to their Harbor Division units, swapping out primary units and continuing this pursuit for as long as it takes. Pulling over now, losing control, losing control right at the gore point here. Looks like he took his eyes off the road, hit the or hit the median there, or I should say the curb along the gore point, and now turning on his flashers. The hazard lights have come on. Earlier we saw the windshield wipers employed. They have been turned off. But again, very erratic behavior here, but clearly the suspect taking his eyes off the road, sliding into the concrete there, and now back on the number 4 lane. Back in the number 4 lane of the northbound side of the 110 freeway, coming up on PCH. He'll continue past PCH here and slowing down to about 40 miles per hour. So the speeds are really all over the place, even below that. And it's just a matter of time, folks. LAPD has all the time in the world in a situation like this. Law enforcement has the luxury of time and resources. And just from what we've been able to observe up here, it is highly likely that the suspect in this situation may be under the influence of something, what we don't know, and certainly that's partially speculation on my point, but the behavior has just been so erratic, especially watching him in the driver's seat. The scary part about it, the scariest thing, is that he is believed to be armed and dangerous. Once again, northbound 110 freeway coming up on Sepulveda Boulevard at about 50 miles per hour, so well under the speed limit. The driver regaining control of the steering after taking his eyes off the road there for a minute, hitting some concrete, and then back on the main lanes here after bypassing many exits. He's had plenty of opportunities to get off the freeway. He did briefly in San Pedro, and then just turned around and ended up on the northbound side after leading police down the southbound side of the 110 freeway. This is a pursuit that is now approaching, by my estimate, about 75 or 80 minutes at least. So closing in on an hour and a half here as we continue this joyride up the Harbor Freeway, and you can see still half a dozen or so LAPD units. Actually looks like exactly that, with those 4 units right there, additional units behind them keeping traffic back, and CHP assisting in the traffic situation. LAPD's Harbor Division now taking over, and the slow speed chase continues through Compton. Now a slow roll under the Carson overpass, Carson Street, continuing northbound up the 110 freeway at a virtual snail's pace. You can see the amount of resources committed to this pursuit after an extensive chase on the southbound side. We are retracing our steps here, continuing northbound up the 110 freeway, just waiting to see what this driver decides to do here. We have not seen any further attempts at a spike strip. We have not seen any effort to hit the driver, but you can see there is a contingent of law enforcement behind this initial set of LAPD officers ready to assist in the takedown and ultimate arrest of this suspect. We now have, if we widen out, Rob, by my count, upwards of 10 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units right behind him, and then an additional half dozen or so, close to 7 or 8 that are behind them. So lights and sirens on here, the speeds slowing down, the driver clearly very agitated, but also well aware of the attention that he has created here. That is certainly not lost upon him at all. So what is going through his mind? Always a mystery and a dangerous neighborhood to get inside of. But with somebody who's exhibited this kind of unpredictability, you can tell just how gingerly they are treating this. Lots of communication taking place and strategizing, especially if it does come to an end here in the middle of the freeway. They will attempt to at least try and execute a safe felony stop, But if he picks up speed here or decides to get back on surface streets, that'll just create an even more dangerous situation. But right now, this is about as safe as it gets. For a pursuit as wild as this one was earlier on, it is now a very tame situation on a somewhat controlled environment. On the northbound side of the freeway here, you can see they have entrance ramps closed. They have a traffic brake in place, and now it's just a matter of waiting the suspect out and waiting his gas tank out as this vehicle continues to just stroll up the freeway. And now it looks like he might be coming. No, fake out. Thought he was going to come to a stop there, but just a head fake, kind of weaving over the lines here, swerving ever so slowly over this 3-lane portion of the 110 freeway. Near the top of your screen there, you can see they have that entrance ramp shut down. That's the 405 entrance ramp to the 110 freeway, so that ramp has been shut down. He is really crawling by here to everybody's agitation. And if we can, maybe we can come back around the front, maybe get a glimpse and see what we can see. It's been a few minutes since we've had the opportunity to look through the front windshield here, but our pilot Josh Surf ready to get into position here as we come around the north side of the 405, and maybe we'll be able to tell whether he's still reaching as he was earlier underneath the passenger side. He was clearly reaching for something and was very, very agitated, really moving around behind the wheel there, but despite that, showing remarkable control behind the wheel, despite losing it for just a second. He is really just continuing this slow speed pursuit at a snail's pace. Back over to the left, and again, just kind of crossing over these various lanes. No signs of really exiting, just kind of toying with those officers behind him. Once again, to recap, if you are just joining us on abc7.com and our ABC7 streaming apps on various platforms, Chris Christie up in Air 7 HD as we continue to follow this, what is now a slow speed pursuit up the northbound side of the 110 freeway. This is a situation that started about an hour and a half ago as LAPD's gang unit was following the suspect through the streets of Inglewood, refusing to pull over, and LAPD's 77th Street Division assisting in this pursuit. Again, he was weaving his way through Inglewood, known to be an armed and dangerous driver behind the wheel of this silver Chevy Malibu, eventually ending up in the Crenshaw district and onto the 110 freeway. We've traveled all the way down the 110 freeway southbound into Harbor City, and eventually the suspect got off the freeway and then back on the opposite side. So he's covered quite a bit of real estate in the last 90 minutes, but he's not breaking any speed records now. He's really just pacing himself here as he continues to toy with these LAPD officers behind him. California Highway Patrol doing their part to keep bystanders away from him on the freeway, and that helicopter overhead providing a night sun over the suspect and calling out the shots from up above. And by calling out the shots, I mean calling out the location as he continues to navigate through the city of Los Angeles. As we continue to make our way through South LA, we see him at varying speeds, at some points as low as 25, 30 miles per hour, and much earlier on doing upwards of 70 miles per hour on surface streets. We haven't seen those high speeds on the freeway. For some reason, he's really decided to slow things down here, and that's for the better, I guess you would say. But certainly creating a stressful situation for everybody involved. Again, slowing down here as he comes up on Redondo Beach Boulevard. To the best of our knowledge, he appears to be the only person in the car, although we're unable to confirm whether there is anybody in the back seat. It certainly doesn't appear as though there is. We just don't know that for certain. Once again, slowing down dramatically here, barely idling. If we go ahead and throw up our real-time speed tracker, you can see we're almost at a dead stop here, about 5 to 10 miles per hour. So it could be indicative of the subject's mood, or it could just be indicative of the fact that this vehicle may be running out of gas. Might be the latter, but it does appear we are coming to a stop here. So you can see what this has done to traffic here, that traffic break preventing anybody from getting in the way here in terms of either agitating him or even putting themselves in danger, and certainly taking all the bystanders out of the way of crossfire in the event that it comes to that. But hopefully this comes to a peaceful resolution. Again, we're continuing, well, we thought he was coming to a stop, but looks like he's got a little more gas left. So picking up a little bit of speed here, again, right at Redondo Beach Boulevard is where we are, northbound side of the 110 freeway. About a dozen law enforcement units involved in this chase. Pardon me. Looks like the suspect may be on his cell phone here. Unclear whether he is in communication with law enforcement or maybe calling a relative. We don't know that at this point. Anything is possible. But it looks like he's also picking up a little bit of speed once again after slowing down to a crawl back there. Now approaching Rosecrans Avenue at 20 miles per hour. The 110 freeway now completely, or I should say virtually, shut down through this part of South LA. Again, we are coming up on the 105 here, just off the nose, and what was a high-speed pursuit much earlier on is a bona fide slow-speed chase here on the northbound side of the 110 freeway. That speed is giving LAPD an opportunity to consider additional contingencies. But right now, it's slow as she goes as he continues to kind of continue the joyride, if nothing else. And there are the looky-loos. So some folks pulling over there at El Segundo Boulevard, possibly some cameramen and some other folks watching along and catching a glimpse of another LA spectacle here on a Tuesday night as this driver of a silver Chevy Malibu continues to lead police on what has been a frustrating pursuit, to say the least. You know, they want to bring this to a safe and peaceful resolution, and as much as it looks like this may be teetering out, it's concerning for everybody involved, both up here in Air 7 HD as well as those units right behind him. I can assure you that nobody is letting their antenna down, because a situation like this always has the potential of turning very volatile on a dime. And without knowing what the mental state of that driver is behind the wheel, they are going to use every precaution in dealing with him, and that has been very evident. Again, to reiterate, we have not seen even a hint of a pit maneuver. We have not seen any additional spike strip attempts, which they have had opportunities at various points to perform both. And they could have taken it upon themselves to, at the direction of a watch commander, bring this to an end that way. Instead, they are giving this driver a lot of leeway and allowing him to give up peacefully on his own accord. So under the 105 interchange we go here at a snail's pace, northbound 110 freeway, LAPD continuing this slow speed pursuit up the Harbor Freeway with no clear destination in mind here. This driver slowing down, speeding up slightly on occasion, contemplating his next move, and still acting very animated behind the wheel. Every glimpse that we've managed to get through that front windshield has been the picture of somebody who is very agitated and possibly under the influence of something. Suffice it to say, it's an unpredictable situation, despite the fact that it has slowed down considerably. And when I say slowed down earlier in this pursuit, it's worth reiterating, he was doing very dangerous speeds through the streets of Inglewood, blowing through red light after red light, not slowing down for any cross traffic, barely even tapping the brakes, and it was really causing a lot of heartache for everybody. But in the meantime, he has since navigated his way over to the 110 freeway, taken police for a joyride all the way down the 110 freeway, and now back up the northbound side after getting off in San Pedro. And you can see additional folks following along with this pursuit on social media and pulling over to catch a glimpse of this police chase. Again, it is coming up on the bottom of the hour here as we continue to follow this pursuit for as long as we are able to maintain our maintain enough fuel to do so. And you can see we have some other folks along the side of the road here. Looks like they may be photographers trying to get into position here, trying to catch their own glimpse of the suspect. But LAPD, for the most part, has most of the freeway shut down with traffic breaks, and you can see he is picking up a little bit of speed once again. What you will notice here as we come to a pause, we are right over the 105 freeway. He is now past us, coming up on Manchester Avenue, and what we're going to do is hold over this interchange here and shoot him from a distance with our Air 7 Extreme Vision as we await for clearance from LAX's Air Traffic Control Tower to give us the go-ahead and continue to follow northbound on the 110 freeway. But you'll notice, for the time being, you'll see him kind of travel away from us, and you'll see the picture get a little more faint as we try and just keep up with him with the work of our expert photographer, Rob Gluckman, in the back seat here. LAPD now preparing to swap out airships. And that speed tracker there is roughly about right, about 25 miles per hour. Again, slowing down ever so slightly, but it has been stop and go for the better part of the last 40 minutes now. At times applying a little bit of gas, and at other points almost looks like he's ready to give up. But you can see in this shot here just how much law enforcement is in position. That is a luxury they've been able to take advantage of. Based on the speed he's been going, they've been able to get enough backup in place here to keep everybody safe when this does come to an end, and plenty of resources in position to bring him into custody as safely as possible. Again, coming up on Manchester Avenue, passing the exit ramp, and again, for the third or fourth time, almost coming to a complete stop. Can you go ahead and show me, Rob, up ahead, there's a report of a fire. It's a homeless encampment fire along the side of the freeway. That is coming up, just past the suspect's position. You can see LA City Fire now pulling up on the scene of this one. The fire climbing the retaining wall there up some vines. So a small vegetation fire as a result of a homeless encampment just up ahead here as the suspect slows down, but there's clearly smoke off of the side of the freeway as he comes closer to it. Unclear whether this will affect this pursuit at all, but you can see we are now coming very close to that as LA Fire Department gets into position and begins getting water on that fire. LAPD well aware of the situation as we continue northbound on the 110 freeway at Manchester Avenue, and you can also see there are folks running along the side of the freeway trying to go viral. And now look at this, the driver stepping on it once again. So some gas still left in the tank here as he drives past this fire. Again, there is the fire on the side of the freeway. LA City Fire on scene down there, but the suspect picking up a little bit of speed, now doing about 50 to 60 and continuing northbound, coming up on Florence past the Florence exit ramp. So as we take care of a little bit of housekeeping up here in Air 7 HD, want to bring you up to date as we continue to follow the suspect northbound on the 110 freeway. We will be pulling off of here shortly for fuel ourselves, but you can see we are now coming up on Vernon Avenue with a full contingent of LAPD ground units, about a dozen, including some assistance by CHP, again, LAPD's 77th Street Division, as well as Newton officers in pursuit of this slow-speed driver. Again, he's been fluctuating in speed, but taking law enforcement back up towards downtown LA. Again, this all started in Inglewood as LAPD's gang unit was surveilling the suspect, and you can see, well, this is where we are now after some dangerous driving through surface streets, ending up on the 110 freeway. We took it all the way southbound into Harbor City, made a U-turn in San Pedro, and now we've come all the way back northbound on the Harbor Freeway as he continues to play this game of stop and go. LAPD exercising extreme caution with the knowledge that the suspect behind the wheel here is not only driving, or was not only driving very erratically, but is also believed to be armed and dangerous. And it looks like he may be once again coming to a virtual stop here as we come around the north side, coming towards us here, approaching Expo Park. You can see he is now once again basically let go of the gas pedal and is just rolling down that number 2 lane. You can see LAPD ready to get into position should he come to a complete stop. We've seen a number of fake outs, but they are ready to bring this to a safe and peaceful end and execute that felony stop. I would say normally sooner rather than later, but again, they've exercised extreme caution and extreme patience throughout the course of this pursuit. We're now going on over the 2-hour mark for this pursuit. It's really been a bizarre chase. One thing we should go ahead and note here as we make our way northbound on the 110 freeway, something that we did not quite experience on the southbound side. You can see some folks here that have pulled over, by the way, apparently cheering this person on. But what has been developing here over the last several minutes is now a major traffic nightmare. It's a major situation that's developed in the last half hour or so as they shut down the northbound side of the freeway. We now see a backup as far as the eye can see, well into South LA, in fact, all the way down into the South Bay, a steady river of headlights northbound that are basically stranded on the freeway with the option to pull off. But you see that this slow speed pursuit has really tied things up here as LAPD has maintained a strong traffic brake, not allowing anybody to get ahead of them here and keeping the distance between the public and this dangerous driver. So despite the slow speed nature of this pursuit, we now have a very frustrating traffic situation that has developed, to say nothing of the freeway fire along the side of the road back at Manchester Avenue, a homeless encampment fire that has crept up along the side of the retaining wall. LA City Fire in the process of getting water on that fire, but anything but boring night here on the 110 freeway in South LA. Again, we're in Expo Park here as the suspect approaches another overpass. We're continuing to see more attention generated as this pursuit spreads across social media. A number of folks lining up at overpass after overpass. A lot of folks catching a glimpse of this and taking pictures. And you can see he is continuing this slow roll up the Harbor Freeway, approaching downtown LA. He's now about a quarter mile or so from the 10 freeway. All right, picking up a little more speed once again here, approaching the 10 freeway, coming underneath us up here at Air 7 HD as we continue to follow this, about 25 miles per hour, approaching the 10, and no signs of exiting. So he is going to put himself in the slot here, as they say, in downtown LA if he continues up the 110. Still has a few hundred yards before he commits here, but it does look like he is indeed committing to the 110. That's the northbound side there on the right, southbound traffic on the left. And while southbound traffic is moving once again, a major traffic backup has developed on the northbound side of the freeway, extending from South LA all the way into downtown LA. So a frustrating night, and now, look at this. I mean, now we're down to a full stop almost. I think this is about as slow as we've seen him go, and it looks like, I hate to speculate on his fuel situation, but he's now come to a dead stop, and sure enough, putting his foot on the gas once again here. So really toying with law enforcement, looking for a game of cat and mouse. A dozen LAPD officers in pursuit of this silver Chevy Malibu, out-of-state plates. No clear indication on where he resides, but a tremendous amount of resources committed to this pursuit. What was a high-speed and very dangerous pursuit in Inglewood has now turned into an extended 2-hour-plus slow-speed chase, a joyride up the 110 freeway. Riding the median and pulling back towards the main lanes of the 110. Again, he had an option there to get off. Yeah, that would have been the 10 eastbound. He's bypassing the 10 east. Appears committed to the northbound 110. I think there might be another off-ramp that'll put him on the westbound side, but he really has shown no signs at all of fact. No, actually that's about it. Yeah, so he has now lost his opportunity to get on the 10 freeway. He's going to come up on a number of exit ramps in downtown LA, and again, LAPD and CHP keeping the public back and keeping any additional cars from entering the freeway. As tame as this pursuit has been over the last hour or so, It's worth mentioning that this is the time of an LA police chase where some of the savvier drivers know that they can find a hiding spot in the buildings, in the tall buildings of downtown LA. There are a number of parking garages. There are a number of places to kind of squeeze into without being spotted by the airships up ahead. It becomes much more challenging both for us up here in Air 7 HD and the LAPD airship to monitor each and every turn once you get into downtown LA. The buildings are very tall, and it's just a much more difficult situation to navigate with air traffic once the suspects traditionally get off the freeway here. So he does appear to remain committed to the northbound side of the 110 freeway, but if that changes, if he gets off of the freeway, it would not be surprising at all if he decides to look for his hiding spot, or maybe a spot where he can dump the vehicle and then run on foot and try, however unsuccessful they usually are, he could try and evade law enforcement that way. But it does look like, for the time being, he is staying on the freeway. But something to keep an eye on as we get into the 9 o'clock hour here. Certainly looks like he's going to take us for a joyride through downtown. LAPD and CHP preparing to block entrance ramps up ahead here, and the slow joyride continues. Now approaching that 3rd and 4th Street ramp, or actually he's past the ramp, he's approaching the overpass, and just kind of, again, biding his time. All likelihood he'll be spending the night in jail. It's just a matter of time for this driver. I think we'll kind of stay as long as we can here, just kind of conserving fuel, and we've got a few more minutes, so might as well see how this goes here through downtown. Let's call it about another 5 minutes. We're doing, I mean, he's slowing down so much, we are not burning a whole lot of fuel, so figure another 5 to 10 max. Okay, under the overpass now, still on the 110 freeway. Oh, I'm sorry, 101, now getting onto the 101 northbound. So we're transitioning off of the 110 freeway onto the northbound side of the 101. That'll take him into Hollywood if he continues, and that will create an even bigger traffic nightmare for everybody traveling through town here. So we're leaving downtown, that's good news, but now we're on the 101 freeway where traffic is going to be severely impacted. What it does do is allows CHP to reopen the northbound side of the 110 freeway, and that will relieve a very heavy traffic backup that has built up over the last 60 minutes. Now, our suspect picking up speed once again, and now northbound on the 101 freeway. With traffic getting by here, we'd expect another traffic break in place in the next couple of minutes. In fact, the request has been put out, so that traffic will be halted here in just a second. We're going away from the downtown LA buildings and into East Hollywood. Without knowing exactly what's going on in the suspect's head, it's starting to become clearer that he is enjoying the attention, and it's something that we've seen evidence of at various overpasses. We've seen a number of people posting about this pursuit, lots of people following along on social media. Obviously, we are streaming everywhere, and LAPD has shut down the vital freeways of LA City. So you can see a major situation that has turned into quite a spectacle. What was a very dangerous high-speed pursuit through Inglewood has turned into a dramatic joyride, albeit a slow-speed pursuit, up and down the Harbor Freeway. We've now traveled through downtown LA and are now on the 101 freeway. So despite the lack of action in this shot here, still a volatile situation behind the wheel as a driver who is believed to be armed and dangerous has shown how unpredictable he is, and very erratic driving early on, which can continue at any point if he decides to act out once again. And what we don't know is just how much fuel is left in the tank. The car itself appears to be in perfect driving condition. There were opportunities early on to bring this pursuit to a stop via spike strip or potentially even a pursuit intervention tactic. However, the watch commander in this case, in this situation, has decided against it, and that is in all likelihood a safety decision based on what they know about this suspect. We've seen him also on the phone at various points as well, talking on the phone, texting as well, and the few times that we've been able to get a really good close-up through the windshield, we have seen a very disturbed, very animated individual behind the wheel, acting very erratically, still maintaining remarkable composure and control of the vehicle, but still agitated nonetheless, and in my view, enjoying the attention he is getting. Hey there, Christina, you up? Yeah, just FYI, we bought ourselves a couple of minutes. We've got Burbank standing by for fuel. Yeah, we're back. We're back, and he is waking up. Look at this, 88 miles per hour. The suspect apparently boring himself and now deciding to push the pedal to the metal here, 95 miles per hour, and now this has become, once again, a situation that I was afraid of, something we alluded to earlier, and now pushing 100 miles per hour, northbound side of the 101 freeway after an hour of hovering between 30 and 40 miles per hour. He is now really stepping on it. Fortunately, very light traffic. They have performed a traffic break on the northbound side of the 101 freeway, now getting units into position to shut down some of these entrance ramps, and it looks like this suspect was unwilling to give up, and that has created now a dangerous situation, doing close to triple-digit speeds on the northbound side of the 101. So he will now take us through Hollywood here. If he decides to stay on the 101, he could continue on into the San Fernando Valley. A number of LAPD units right behind him here. Now Hollywood Division joining the pursuit. You can see additional CHP units on the opposite lanes of traffic on the southbound side. Again, everybody now getting into position to close off entrance ramps and keep traffic at bay. But the suspect, after an extended slow-speed joyride, now pushing the pedal to the metal and picking up quite a bit of steam, slowing down now slightly, but still looks like he is just ready. It looks like he is just ready to take this somewhere. Where? We don't know. We don't know what's going on in his head. We don't know, what his mental state is, nor do we know where he's from. Law enforcement may very well be aware of where he resides, but we really don't know what his background is or what neighborhoods he calls home. And so where he decides to take this is anybody's guess. It certainly has up until now appeared to be an aimless ride, but now we see him picking up speed here, coming up on Western Avenue. So coming up on Western Avenue, northbound side of the 101 freeway, traffic getting by, relatively light on the southbound side, but he is by himself with all 4 lanes of the Hollywood freeway at his disposal here. He's been shifting lanes, no indication of getting off here, but we are now traveling much closer to the speed limit than we have seen previously on the freeway. The suspect sitting back in the driver's seat now looks like he is a bit calmer than he was earlier. Something that has been of concern throughout this chase was his antics behind the wheel and occasionally reaching underneath the passenger seat and in the glove compartment. The driver, we should mention, if you're just joining us, is known to be armed and dangerous. This was initiated by LAPD's gang unit, ended up on the freeway, and now we are northbound on the 101 freeway at a much more manageable speed here, slowing down again, but still continuing to travel at about 25, 30 miles per hour. Stepped on it for a little bit and slowing down once again. And you could see just a second ago has that cell phone in his hand. So he is presumably texting. At one point, it certainly looked like he had the phone raised to his ear, and it looks like he is just going to continue this through Hollywood into the Cahuenga Pass, and that'll put him here in the San Fernando Valley in just a few minutes as he continues to travel northbound. We're going to be pulling off here in just a second and take an opportunity to refuel. Hopefully we won't miss anything, and we'll be right back up here in just a couple of minutes. As we leave you, though, we're going to keep the camera on the suspect, who is coming to another stop here, maybe a full stop, or maybe just another stroll. We'll try and stay with it here as long as we can. At some point, we're going to continue on, but for now, we'll kind of keep the camera trained on this suspect, who is coming to a pause at Cahuenga Boulevard, northbound side of the 101 freeway. We'll take a little heat. All right. Yeah, we'll keep the camera on it. Again, he is picking up a little bit of speed here. We're going to take this opportunity and be back with you in just a few minutes. As we wait for clearance at Burbank, I want to go ahead and get you up to date here. Continuing northbound on the 101 freeway, the suspect appears to be approaching a set of spike strips on the northbound side of the 101 freeway. LAPD clearly in position here. They've laid down some spikes right there. We'll see if he goes around them. It certainly looks like, was that him? No, that's not him yet, right? No, he's coming up. He's coming up here, so we'll see if he continues. He's slowing down quite a bit, even hugging that gore point, possibly showing signs of getting off the freeway. So we are now being cleared into Burbank, but again, just to reiterate, we will keep the camera on this situation for as long as we can maintain a visual, but for now, looks like, yeah, a little bit of exhaust there, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on him here. And Did they pull it? There. It's unusual. So, yeah, attempted spike strip there, but the driver just swerved right around. So he's continuing up the freeway here. He is now in the San Fernando Valley, and we're going to start to lose a visual here in the next few seconds. But what appeared to be the first sign of a spike attempt in this pursuit. Yeah. Once again, as you follow along with us here, we're continuing eastbound on the 10 freeway, now approaching Atlantic Boulevard. Still a game of stop and go here as the driver behind the wheel of this silver Chevy Malibu continues to contemplate on how he wants to end the night here. You can see LAPD staying close behind him here. We have seen him on his phone at various points here, and on occasion coming to complete stops like this, although usually he transitions into a slow roll and then picks up speed and kind of goes through that routine over and over again. So this has been, again, going on for the better part of the last 2 hours that he's been on the freeway. The first hour he was mostly on surface streets in Inglewood. Again here, he's dealing with now some disabled wheels. The rubber starting to really come off of that front left wheel, and we understand, or could see clearly, that he's losing air in the rear as well. But that front left, that driver's side front tire is really shredding. So that's going to make it more and more difficult for him to maintain control of the vehicle and inhibit his ability to drive safely. So hopefully that plays into his decision making. Hopefully he'll decide to just bring it to a peaceful end, and it really would be in everybody's best interest at this point. But if there's any way to calm him down, that's what they're going to try and do, presumably to even put him in contact with his family, if that's a possibility. So that's one hope, if that's an option. And you could see he's continuing now to kind of wobble down the eastbound side of the freeway here, with about a half a dozen units at least still behind him. They have handed this off amongst each other, mostly within LAPD. CHP still assisting in this traffic tie-up. And much as we saw earlier on the 110 freeway, we're now seeing an extensive backup on the eastbound side of the 10 freeway. This backup now extends from Atlantic Boulevard all the way back to well before Eastern Avenue now. So it's growing steadily as the freeway fills up. As I look out the window here, really a steady backup of headlights in this direction coming from East LA, and actually as far back as almost the East LA interchange. So you can see that backup there. That is all due to the traffic break that has been created by law enforcement down there on the ground to keep the public at bay and keep those motorists safe. So it's very frustrating if you're stuck in that traffic, but obviously there's an important reason for it, and that reason is they want to get this person off the road and get him the help that he needs as soon as possible. Of course, we're now going on 3+ hours of this routine, so it's certainly getting old for everybody involved, but that doesn't take away from the danger that still lies behind the wheel. We just don't know what he's capable of. And again, it's worth reiterating, the early reports have been throughout this pursuit that he is believed to be armed. Once again, Chris Christie with you up in Air 7 HD as we continue to follow this slow speed pursuit down the 10 freeway, eastbound side of the 10 freeway. In the San Gabriel Valley now as we leave East LA and continue to follow this LAPD in pursuit of this individual behind the wheel of a silver Chevy Malibu. Was originally wanted by LAPD's gang unit in South LA. A number of other divisions been joining this pursuit since the beginning. 77th Division as well as Newton Harbor Division at one point getting involved when he ended up on the freeway. And now for the better part of the last 3 hours, we have seen this turn from a high-speed pursuit to a slow-speed pursuit. He has really covered quite a bit of real estate throughout South LA, all the way down to the port of Long Beach and all the way up into the San Fernando Valley. And now again, we find ourselves heading east on the 10 freeway. CHP doing their best to keep everybody safe, shutting down the freeway, creating quite a traffic backup, I should say. But still, again, all for the purpose of keeping everybody safe. And there are indications that the driver behind the wheel may be mentally impaired. And so for that reason, amongst many others, including the fact that there has been widespread belief that he may be armed, they are treating this very gingerly. That's why you don't see any aggressive pit maneuvers. It looks like the go-ahead was given at some point to attempt a spike strip, which appears, if that was the case, which may have happened while we were refueling our helicopter, may have been effective. And now you could see the rubber, that tire coming off of that front left wheel at least. Also appears that the rear wheel is flat as well. So you've got two flat tires, one of which the tire is coming off. And that's going to make it very difficult if he decides to step on the gas as he has previously. At this point, he is continuing the slow speed charade, putting on quite a spectacle for a lot of folks who have come out, who have been watching this online, have desired to take a part in this moment and share this on their social media feeds. We've seen a number of people lining certain overpasses with their cell phones out. Certainly not encouraged, but nevertheless expected, especially here in the City of Angels. So we continue eastbound on the 10 freeway at a snail's pace, picking up speed ever so slightly once in a while, maybe 25, 30 miles per hour, and then he slows it back down to 5 or 10, occasionally coming to a complete stop. And it, as we always say, is only a matter of time, although there's no guarantee that it's going to be a short amount of time. LAPD doing another handoff here, swapping out the primary units with additional units that are now joining the pursuit. We should have a total of about 4 units immediately behind him, and additional law enforcement blocking traffic and ready to partake in the felony stop when this does finally come to an end. In the meantime, as they regroup down there, we're going to continue to follow from up here. Looks like the helicopters may be swapping out as well. Appears to be a fuel swap. So a game of handoff here as we go on hour number 3. In fact, 3.5+ hours, which is amongst one of the longest pursuits that I've personally covered. Maybe not quite the longest yet, but certainly approaching one of the longest I can remember in a very long time. Again, 3.5+ hours at this point as we approach the bottom of the 10 o'clock hour. It's a tedious situation, but nonetheless a vital situation that they end safely. They don't want anybody to get hurt. They are trying to protect the public. They are trying to keep themselves safe and hopefully get this individual the help that he needs, which certainly appears to be the case. So again, traveling at about 15, 20 miles per hour at a snail's pace past Walnut Grove Avenue. Incidentally, we are now in the Rosemead area of the San Gabriel Valley, continuing to gradually move eastbound, passing another exit here. That is Walnut Grove, and still seeing units at some of the entrance ramps up ahead. So that trend is continuing, as well as the traffic break behind him. And the reason I keep bringing attention to that is that it is creating a traffic nightmare for folks trying to get home tonight. We've seen this on a number of different freeways now. We saw the extensive backup on the 110 Harbor Freeway. We saw it on the 101 freeway in Hollywood, and now we are seeing a major disruption on the 10 freeway here in Rosemead and in the San Gabriel Valley. A backup that extends all the way back to the East LA interchange. Well, look at this. It appears he's come to a stop once again, and LAPD under the impression that maybe this might have been it. You saw those doors pop open, ready to get into position and bring this to an end here, but they have not been doing that at every stop. So one has to wonder whether they may have information that he may be willing to pull over. We don't know that, but we do know there's a possibility that contact may have been made. We do understand that law enforcement is in touch with family. That appears to be the case. There is also information that this is a wanted burglary suspect. And as we've been reporting, there is a belief that he is armed with a weapon and has a history of weapons violations according to law enforcement traffic. So again, this cat and mouse game continuing down the eastbound side of the 10 freeway, across various lanes here, stopping and going, continuing on again. The hope is that somebody can communicate with him and convince him to give up peacefully. But beyond that, we could say with I should also mention there's also reports that we may be heading away from where this person lives, away from home. So we don't know where he intends on going, but it does appear he's traveling away from one of the possible residences that they believe he resides in. So again, a number of factors at play here. LAPD dealing with the information that they have, but there was definitely a sign there as he came to a stop a minute ago that maybe that might be an opportunity for them to bring this to an end. But what we're seeing here is the same pattern that we've been seeing all night. It's a stop and go situation where he kind of toys with the units behind him, comes to a complete stop at times, but then steps on the gas again. And this can continue indefinitely, quite frankly, until he runs out of gas. It's really up to the watch commander, because there are other ways to handle this. There's a number of strategies and tactics that could be employed. We've seen a different strategy tonight, although one of them includes a spike strip, and that spike strip attempt appears to have been successful. The spike strip has the most effectiveness, though, when the driver is driving much faster. You could drive pretty slow on a flat tire, or two flat tires in this case, and at the speeds he's going, those flat tires aren't really much of a problem. But you could drive pretty slow for a long amount of time before this officially ends. So it's a wait and see game up here. It's much more frustrating for the people that are stuck in the traffic down below, and there are thousands currently stuck in traffic on the eastbound side of the 10 freeway. As the pattern continues, one has to wonder what other considerations they may be making, what other tactics they may be strategizing. We don't know what they are, but certainly they're contemplating other ways to bring this to an end at this point. There has to be a backup plan. They never operate without one, and this is not an exception. But for now, it is a wait-and-see game, and a game of hope that he thinks better of it, or runs out of steam, or the vehicle becomes disabled. Of course, the use of force is the last resort of any kind of force. I mean, they have already employed their spike strip, which was successful to a degree, but here we are, 3.5 hours into this pursuit, and the amount of resources that have been poured into this are immense at this point, as well as the disruption to traffic, which has been going on for 3.5 hours. As I mentioned, we've seen thousands of people stuck in traffic due to this person's decisions tonight. Again, this is a wanted individual with a history of weapons violations, reportedly. There are indications that he is a wanted burglary suspect. We understand that this was initiated by LAPD's gang units in South LA earlier this evening. There was a wild high-speed chase with some heart-stopping moments in the early hour of this pursuit throughout the streets of Inglewood. And look at that. Looks like a third flat tire. So we've now not only confirmed that the left tires are flat, but that front right tire is also flat. And even as he picked up speed there, you saw a couple of sparks fly off that rim. So he's starting to make metal here. He's running out of rubber, and he is still swerving and trying to maintain control of the vehicle. He loses it a little bit if he speeds up, and that's the goal of the spike strip. But he really isn't going very fast, and he's really, as I mentioned, just continuing a pattern of behavior, trying to antagonize these officers and drag them along here. Almost positive, although I can't say for certain, but almost positive that we are looking at an entirely new group of officers, with perhaps maybe the exception of one, but that handful of officers behind him, doubtful that many of them were with this chase 3.5 hours ago, although we can't say that with 100% certainty, although we can say that most of the units have been swapped out at this point. There have been several agencies assisting in this endeavor, as well as at least 3 helicopters that we're aware of. So, as I mentioned, lots of resources being poured into this pursuit, all for the safety of the public at large, as well as the safety of this person behind the wheel who may be mentally impaired. Yeah, the name is right. It probably is real. But in any event, what is the plan? I'm just curious what the plan is for 11. Are we sticking with it for the whole show? Cool. Just checking. Perfect. Appreciate it. Got that tire flapping. Again, more sparks coming from that front left wheel as he picks up a little more speed now. We'll go ahead. Let's throw up the speed tracker. It looks like he was pushing it a little bit there. Every time he does, you start to see he loses more rubber, and gradually he will lose more control, especially as the tires come all the way off here. So still seeing a pattern of erratic driving, erratic behavior. And now not 2, but 3 flat tires. Both of the left tires, as well as the front right tire, which we saw sparking just a few minutes ago. And you can see he is just continuing with the stop and go pattern that we've been describing. LAPD really, really close behind him. They're really closing in on him. And, you know, they're ready. I mean, these officers are ready, as they always are, but when you have a slow speed pursuit like this, they're extra ready. They have extra time to consider all of the factors involved here. They don't have to worry about any bystanders in this situation. Traffic, incidentally, is still open on the westbound side of the 10 freeway. However, eastbound traffic has been halted behind this pursuit. There's a traffic brake in place to keep the public at bay behind this pursuit, and there are officers up ahead preventing folks from entering the freeway. That's a pattern we've seen on the 110 freeway as well as the 101, and now we're seeing it once again here on the 10 freeway, and that's something that's always preferable, but not always possible, depending on the manpower available and, of course, depending on the speed of the pursuit. Again, the speed of this pursuit is giving law enforcement every opportunity to come up with other contingencies, think of things that they might not be thinking about, and gather more information. And there are indications that there is a widespread belief now that the person behind the wheel is suffering from a mental impairment. And so they are treating him carefully, but there's also apparently a want for burglary. That is what we're hearing. That is the indication coming from the LAPD, is that this is a burglary suspect with a history of weapons violations, and there's widespread belief throughout the course of this pursuit that he is armed and dangerous. So with all of those factors in place, this is what we are left with. They are treating him very gingerly and presumably will continue to do so until he steps out of the vehicle at some point, hopefully peacefully. Once again, if you're joining us live on abc7.com and our ABC7 streaming apps, now is the time to remind you that we are preparing to go live on ABC7 with our 11 o'clock Eyewitness News broadcast coming up in just 7 minutes as we continue to follow this slow speed pursuit, now going on hour number 4. That's right, almost 4 hours of continuous coverage here, and no end in sight. I can't believe I'm even saying that, but really, we don't know how this one's going to end, and we can only hope at this point that it ends peacefully. But there are a number of terrifying factors. Despite the slow speeds here, we are dealing with a very unstable individual behind the wheel, somebody wanted for various charges on violent crimes, as well as the widespread belief now that he may very well be mentally impaired. And so you have law enforcement treating the situation very gingerly, and we have a major traffic situation that has developed over the course of the evening. Currently on the 10 freeway, eastbound side of the 10 freeway, all jammed up. As you head out of East LA, coming out of the East LA interchange, heading into the San Gabriel Valley, we are bumper to bumper as law enforcement has created a traffic break here in El Monte is where we are now, approaching the 605 freeway, and once again the vehicle coming to a complete stop here, waiting for law enforcement to open the doors. They pop the doors, he keeps on rolling. Once again, Eyewitness News at 11 o'clock, just 2 minutes away as we prepare for full coverage of this 4-hour marathon pursuit. This time here in El Monte. It started in South LA through Inglewood. We've been all over town, all the way down to San Pedro in the South Bay, hit the Port of Long Beach, back up the Harbor Freeway, up into Hollywood and the San Fernando Valley, and back down again. And again, you can see we are now in the San Gabriel Valley, eastbound on the 10 freeway, approaching the 605 freeway with an armed and dangerous suspect behind the wheel of that silver Chevy Malibu. LAPD, the lead agency in this pursuit. There has been what appears to be a successful spike strip attempt, and you can see both of the left tires and the front right tire are all flat. Now, it's not inhibiting the driving too much because of the slow speeds here, but nonetheless, it is creating for a very tedious process of getting this person off the road and getting him the help he needs, and of course, trying to do so while keeping everybody safe. Again, westbound side of the 10 freeway remains open. Eastbound side, all jammed up, down to a halt, a grinding halt from East LA all the way out here to El Monte. So a dramatic situation playing out on live TV here. We're going to continue to cover every second of it coming up right here on Eyewitness News at 11 o'clock. Don't you start. Shooting stars, remember? All right, here we go, here we go. David, it has been one of the longest and one of the most bizarre police chases we have seen in some time. This all started shortly before 7 o'clock, and as you just expertly articulated, we have been all over town, all over LA County, from the South Bay all the way through South LA, downtown, San Fernando Valley. We find ourselves now here past East LA in the San Gabriel Valley in El Monte on the eastbound side of the 10 freeway, approaching the 605. Now, as he has made his way from freeway to freeway, it has snarled traffic up all night long. Again, we're going on hour number 4 of these charades with the suspect behind the wheel believed to be armed and dangerous, and there is now widespread belief that he may be suffering from a mental impairment, and so they are treating this very gingerly. There are reports that he is wanted for burglary and has a history of weapons violations, and this was initiated earlier this evening by an LAPD gang unit, and that initial report also resulted in belief that he is armed with a gun at this moment. We don't know any of that for certain. All we have is the information that has been trickling through the police scanners here this evening, and it has been a long and tedious chase. Now, for a bulk of this pursuit, well, I should say in the first hour, it was a very wild and high-speed chase with a lot of heart-stopping moments, going through a lot of red lights, blasting through intersections, and really putting a lot of lives in danger. As we transitioned into the 8 o'clock hour, he eventually made his way onto the 110 freeway, and ever since then has been playing a game of cat and mouse. It's been a stop-and-go pattern where he toys with the police. He seems to be enjoying the attention. There is some indication, there is evidence that he is well aware of the attention-grabbing nature of this, especially as he comes up on various overpasses. There are now folks lining up at some points with signs and their cell phones taking pictures, looking for a viral moment, and they are that routine has been continuing for the better part of the last 3 hours in a very slow speed fashion. So the driving has been fairly composed. He's been able to maintain pretty decent control of the vehicle, but at some point between getting on the 101 freeway in Hollywood and then making his way through the San Fernando Valley and turning around back through downtown, there does appear to have been a successful spike strip attempt. And that's where we see those 2 flat tires on the driver's side, as well as a flat front tire on the passenger side. Now, as far as we could tell, he is the only person inside that car, only the driver that we know of. The passenger seat is empty, and we believe that the back seat is empty too, although we can't confirm that either. You can see the windows are up. They're pretty heavily tinted, but every time we get a glimpse through the driver's side window, we see somebody who is very agitated, very animated, and clearly in some sort of distress. Without too much speculation, there is information, though, that he may be suffering from a mental impairment, and there is an effort at this point right now. We can tell you it does appear they are looking for ways to contact this driver via family, who has reportedly been in touch with authorities. So you can see more spectators coming out. They're following this. We have messages coming in, quite frankly, from across the country, people who have been riveted to this pursuit all evening long. Again, we are going now well over 4 hours now, and we don't know how this is going to end. But as tedious as this is to watch, I think it's very important, David, to stress how dangerous this is despite the slow speeds. We've seen it get to some very dangerous points early on, and we just don't know how this is going to end. And that is the reason, while it's frustrating for some viewers, it is the reason LAPD is taking every precaution to treat this suspect very, very gingerly and not to agitate him too much. And hopefully this comes to a peaceful end in a safe way, and they can execute a felony stop and get this person the help he needs. But there are extraneous circumstances, not the least of which is the fact that he is believed to be armed and dangerous. David? Exactly right. And, we're seeing this pattern continue. And this has been going on literally since about 8 o'clock, where he kind of speeds up to maybe 40, 50 miles per hour at times, but then slows right back down to 10 or 20 miles per hour and continues the game of cat and mouse. And because of the slow speed, it's played into some other sideshows, if you will. Again, as you mentioned, there was somebody along the side of the road, obviously too much time on her hands in the middle of this pandemic, had time to make a sign and got on TV. Of course, there are other folks who are lining up on overpasses, on other streets. You saw right there people screaming at him, and it's just an only in LA situation, quite frankly, and not the least of which included a homeless encampment fire along the northbound side of the 10 freeway, which was cause for alarm. But he just kind of zipped by that, sped up a little bit, and we made our way past that situation. Then he made his way through downtown LA, which was an opportunity which we often see with some of the more savvy pursuit drivers, where they look for an opportunity to hide. He never did. He never did any of that. He just stayed on the 110 freeway, got off at the 101, and then he got on the 101 and did about 100 miles per hour through Hollywood. He zipped through Hollywood, made his way through the Cahuenga Pass, turned around at some point in there, struck that spike strip, and is now all the way back here and continuing the stop and go pattern. And it's clearly a tactic of his that he is enjoying to some degree, because every time he slows down, he's more often than not actually coming to a stop solely for the purpose, it appears, of getting LAPD to stop with him. Every time he does that, they pop open their doors, they prepare for the felony stop, and then he starts inching his way forward, going about 5 to 10 miles per hour. This can continue for quite some time. I can tell you right now there are a couple of units, possibly even the 2 units that you see right here, that are running low on fuel. It's not the first time we've seen that in the course of this pursuit, and they are swapping out units as we speak. So you've got a package of 4 units in pursuit here. There is another team that's basically handling the traffic situation. I believe those are made up of mostly CHP officers that are generally creating that traffic break, keeping the public at bay, keeping those motorists safe, and preventing anybody from flying past this pursuit. They're also getting ahead of the pursuit and blocking off various entrance ramps and preventing anybody from getting in the crossfire as well. We don't want to see anybody hurt, any innocent bystanders here, and so they have the luxury, because of the slow speeds here, they have the luxury of employing all of those tactics and trying to keep everybody safe. But it's also allowing a lot of other folks who have been watching this pursuit online, giving them the opportunity to come out and try and be part of a viral moment. But as you can see here, that slow speed pursuit is continuing here along the eastbound side of the 10 freeway at La Puente. And as the speed has fluctuated, so has the driving behavior, and so has the behavior of literally the driver behind the wheel. When we were able to get a really good view of him early on in the pursuit when he was doing ridiculous speeds, I mean like 60, 75 miles per hour on surface streets through Englewood and up through Crenshaw, he was very animated, clearly very agitated, appeared to be very restless, reaching for something in the glove compartment, reaching under the passenger seat. He almost appeared to be dancing in the driver's seat at some points. And then as we transitioned into the 8 o'clock hour and he got onto the freeway, you started to see a little bit of a different demeanor, not quite as much animation, not quite as much movement, more of a slow speed joyride, if you will. So he seems to be going through an episode that is taking him across the spectrum, and you see LAPD exercising extreme patience with him. We've also seen we've seen him flash his hazard lights, we've seen him turn the windshield wipers on and off, all a part of this charade, whether he's doing it for the enjoyment and the attention, or whether he is an out-of-body experience. It is really anybody's guess. We just don't know the particulars here, but clearly somebody very unstable behind the wheel. I think it's safe to say that, and somebody who is dangerous when we consider the rap sheet that they believe they are dealing with here, according to LAPD. Right. Like I said, at one point he was doing about 100 miles per hour through Hollywood, and then came the spike strip. But it's important to reiterate, the spike strip didn't come until about 3 hours into the pursuit, 2.5, 3 hours into the pursuit before they finally employed that spike strip tactic, which, by the way, they had plenty of opportunity early on, but the go-ahead wasn't given until much later on. If he tries to speed up now, well, we will see those tires really start to shred and start to come apart on him. But right now, while it was a successful spike attempt, and we now have 3 flat tires that we're dealing with, as long as he's going this slow, it's not exactly inhibiting his driving. He's just able to continue the slow parade down the 10 freeway here. So the spike strip, while it was effective, as long as he's going this speed, really doesn't change the game a whole lot. He can continue this, what I think he is treating as a game with law enforcement for still some time to come, all depending on how much gas he's got left in the tank. As I mentioned a minute ago, these law enforcement officers, LAPD's, I believe, still 77th Division, or maybe other divisions at this point. We've seen participation from Hollywood Division, Newton, Harbor Division. This has really covered the entire city. I would imagine there are still some original officers in the proximity here, but they are running low on fuel. They are being replaced out. Same thing for the helicopters. This is now, I believe, we're on the 3rd helicopter hovering over this pursuit. So they are taking turns refueling as well. That is a luxury that the driver of that car does not have. So he is on borrowed time at this point. He's not expending a large amount of fuel, especially in an economy car like that at these speeds. You know, it's hard to calculate, but suffice it to say, he could probably take this for another couple of hours, I would imagine, depending on how much he started with. That's information that we don't know. Certainly something LAPD was probably hoping he would run out of fuel a few hours ago. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. They had lots of opportunities in Inglewood. He was even navigating the same streets pretty repetitively, at least a couple of big loops on the same streets in Inglewood, but then he kind of started gravitating his way towards the 110 freeway. And as it turns out, based on some of the radio traffic that we've intercepted, it turns out that that may have been closer to home for him, maybe South LA or maybe in the South Bay. But as we look back on that period now, he went straight down the 110 freeway, got off near the Vincent Thomas Bridge in San Pedro, and then came back up. And that's, I think, at the point where he started venturing away from home or away from one of the possible addresses that he resides in, according to the information that we've intercepted. So as we sit here now going eastbound on the 10 freeway, he is getting further and further away from what we believe might be home for him. So that leaves you to wonder, what's going through his mind? How does he envision this ending? And, does he have a destination in mind, or is this all a random joyride at this point? Yeah, and the irony of it is that despite the flat tires, which are a big problem for him and certainly would create a problem if he decides to step on the gas, he's got plenty of freeway to play with here. I mean, they've literally shut down the freeway for him. You have never seen the 10 freeway more empty, even at 11 o'clock at night. The eastbound side of the 10 freeway is literally desolate. They have blocked every entrance ramp. They have shut down traffic behind him, and they are calling in for additional units to assist in that traffic operation. So you're looking at miles and miles of wide open freeway, which we would often anticipate a pursuit driver, to ride it out, enjoy it, and speed up and try and get away. He is not trying to get away, I think is my point. He is really in it for the interaction, the game, the attention. He did have his cell phone with him at various points. At some points, he appeared to be on the cell phone or maybe texting at other points, but he appears to be in communication with somebody or some people, and maybe even relatives who we think LAPD has been in communication with, but that cannot be confirmed. The hope is that if it was indeed the case, that maybe relatives would be able to reach out to him and maybe try and talk some sense into him and get him to give himself up peacefully. That's about an hour ago that we got that information, and up until now we have not seen any change in the behavior here. It's a continuing stop-and-go situation, a stop-and-go pattern where he appears to be toying with those officers right behind him. You get the feeling that he's getting some enjoyment out of that, as opposed to just stepping on the gas pedal and trying to flee. And what's wild about that is that we have seen that same situation playing out, not just where this began in Englewood, not just where we think he might be from in South LA or the South Bay, but across town there seems to be people coming out of the woodwork from all different corners of the city and now the county to try and catch a glimpse of this, or in some cases even just cheer him on, like loudly cheer him on, pulling off to the side, not only of side streets but of the freeway, and literally rallying him to, to keep going. There are other folks that have had the opportunity, because of the length of the pursuit and because of the modern technology and the streaming technology that we've been streaming on all night long on various platforms. He also probably has the radio on, who knows, but this has gone far and wide, and it seems like, while it seems like fun and games at times, it can't be stressed enough how dangerous this could all turn at the drop of a dime. The volatility that's involved here, despite the slow speeds and despite the sideshows, if he gets agitated, if he decides that he is not in a good place, this could get very, very dangerous for everybody involved. And that's why they're trying to get everybody to keep, trying to keep their space, keep the public back, and just go along for this as long as the ride lasts, despite the frustrating nature of it. And I can't stress enough, there are thousands of motorists right now. We can't quite swing it back where we are right now, but the camera I'm talking about, but there are thousands of people stuck on the 10 freeway as we speak, for several miles through East LA into the San Gabriel Valley. Traffic is backed up for miles. It's just the latest freeway that we've seen this happen on. It happened on the 110 freeway as he went through downtown. Traffic was backed up all the way to the 105. Same thing on the 101 freeway as people were trying to get home and folks are trying to navigate the freeways on a Tuesday night. It's been very, very frustrating, and that's obviously part of the reason, a small part of the reason, or a big part of the reason I should say, that we've been covering it for 4.5 hours straight. Literally now going on about 4.5 hours. Yeah, as we make our way eastbound, you're right. We're making our way past Baldwin Park, West Covina coming up here. We are getting further and further into the San Gabriel Valley. And I should mention that the 60 freeway and the 210 freeway, if you know somebody, they're wide open. They are free and clear. If you know somebody who might happen to be stuck on the 10 freeway, it's a perfect night to just jump off at any of these exits, go up to the 60 or the 210 freeway. With that said, we've got thousands of people who are just stuck behind this, and as long as he continues on this freeway, if he doesn't, get off of it at some point, it's going to stay this way. It's going to stay clogged for quite some time. So very frustrating for a lot of motorists. I just can't get over the number of people who have lined up along the freeway as we continue to see here, trying to get a picture of it, trying to be a part of this moment. But it is dangerous and certainly not encouraged. Now you see he's continuing this slow pattern of stopping and going. He's got his hazard lights on, windshield wipers going back and forth. Very erratic behavior, no rhyme or reason. LAPD of note, keeping no more than 3 car lengths between them and he, at most right here. So that I find interesting as well. Sometimes we see them give him a little, we see them give suspects a little more space in certain situations, but they are pretty close up behind him, and every time he does come to a stop, you see them ready to execute that felony stop that they are so well trained to do and that we see so very often here. Coming up on the Glendora Avenue exit, which he is bypassing, staying committed to the 10 freeway, and it's just a matter of time. But as I said earlier in our web stream, there's no guarantee that it's going to be a short amount of time. David, you raise a really good point. If he does come to a stop, there is a very real possibility that this could turn into a standoff. And you're right, it could be an extended standoff. And it would not be uncommon in many other situations where we would see them call in for the SWAT team to help them assist in bringing this to an end. Or maybe now that we're in county's jurisdiction, LA Sheriff would send out maybe their Special Enforcement Bureau. However, that question was asked earlier in the pursuit, and the request was denied. They chose not to send out the SWAT team to stand by, and part of that reasoning at the time, and it may very well still be the case, that now that they know what they know about his mental state, that maybe that would not be the best tactic in terms of keeping him calm and relaxed. Now you saw that front left tire come completely off. He's now riding entirely on his aluminum rim. But yeah, I don't even know if he does come to a stop. It'll be interesting to see what type of tactics they will take, whether they will send out a SWAT team or whether they will weather this out some other way. But that's where we're at. And I can guarantee you that that threat is still top of mind hours later on the part of those officers right behind him. They are well aware of what possibly is inside that car, considering the weapons charges and the belief that there was a gun involved in the original crime. So they are treating this very gingerly, as we've been stating, but there's good reason for it, and there's good reason that they are pouring this amount of resources when you think of the dozens of officers who have been involved in this pursuit. Not a normal pursuit, not a typical situation by any means. Various jurisdictions. Again, I mentioned several helicopters taking part in this pursuit. There is a desperation to get this person off the road, but they want to do it as peacefully as possible and as safely as possible, both for the safety of the public and, of course, for the well-being of the individual behind the wheel. ICOM. No, in fact, it's a little surprising. I think he's showing a certain amount of endurance here, quite frankly, considering everything that we've all been through in the last 4.5 hours. The fact that he is still participating in this game, and I keep calling it a game because I do feel like he is playing. He is toying with the units behind him, and whether it's for the attention or whether it's because he's getting enjoyment out of it, he is continuing it hours on end of this pattern of stopping and going. Of course, he gets egged on by occasional passerbys, or in some cases, people that have actually pulled over just for the purpose of watching this roll by. He's putting on quite a show, so he's not only getting enjoyment by toying with law enforcement officers, he also seems to be well aware, as you mentioned earlier, of the fact that he is providing some form of entertainment here. So a lot of factors at play when you consider his criminal history, when you consider the information that he may be mentally impaired and going through some type of a manic episode, and then the fact that he is under this kind of pressure with law enforcement on his tail, helicopters flying overhead. As you mentioned, there's a lot of stimulation coming from all different angles, and I mean, how much longer can one person endure that? I mean, he's showing some degree of endurance to be continuing this on for 4.5 hours. As I mentioned earlier, though, it could all change so quickly if he has a bad moment and decides to make the wrong decision. And that's, again, one of the other many reasons we are here covering this, because there is a very real present danger on the freeway this evening, and has been all evening long over the course of this pursuit. And as you mentioned, we now find ourselves on the eastbound side of the 10 freeway here in West Covina.
When you get tired, you lose your want and desire to fight. And perhaps that's enough for him to just give up and say, do what you will. He certainly doesn't seem nearly as active as he did when he first jumped on this pursuit almost 5 hours ago.
Yeah, and it's one thing if it was during the day and there were it was even more of a spectacle. You can imagine what it would be like. But at this late hour, he seems to almost, I mean, it's impossible to get inside of his head, obviously, but perhaps he just is resigned to how this is going to end and is just enjoying his last remaining minutes of freedom. That we see all the time. That would actually not be so uncommon. So, he's using every last drop of gas. He's using the remainder of his energy and enjoying his last few minutes of freedom in playing this game, which, while it's been frustrating for the entire city this evening, it's still a game to him, I think. And as you see us pull away, we're actually going to start making our way over to the airport for another refuel. This is now going to be our second refuel of the evening. It's been a long night of refueling, not only for us, but as I mentioned earlier, for all of those ground units, the various agencies who have swapped out, handed off. Same thing for the helicopters flying overhead. It is a little bit mind-boggling when you look at a situation like this. Granted, we're somewhat accustomed to this type of situation here in Los Angeles, but the amount of resources that go into this type of a spectacle, and it's obviously for a good reason, as we've been saying, there is a very real danger to the public here, and hopefully it ends as safely as it's been progressing here in the last several hours. Hopefully, when it's all said and done, nobody gets hurt, David.
Right. Okay, so you've got to move out of there and safely refuel. Boy, this guy's just starting to get a little bit squirrely too, right at that moment. But we'll be back. Chris, you've done a great job today. It's been a long night. Good luck refueling. Stay safe, and then we'll have updates for you, for the folks out there who are watching this as soon as we get it. Thank you all for joining us.